Hello! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we'll dive into the story of how a young boy crossed paths with a troubled ex-samurai in Sword of the Stranger. As always, this video includes lots of spoilers, so viewers beware. The story is set in Japan during the Sengoku period. A young boy named Kotaro escapes from a burning temple with his dog, Tabamaru. Kotaro is joined by a monk named Shoin, who then gives the child money and directs Kotaro to travel to Mangaku Temple in a nearby province. Once there, Kotaro needs to look for someone named Zekai. Though reluctant to leave the monk behind, Kotaro travels on his own. We then cut to a cliff, where travelers from China who are forced to continue on foot due to bad weather conditions. A group of bandits find and ambush the travelers, but are defended by their expert swordsman and guard Luo Lang. After defeating the bandits, the travelers manage to get their fallen goods back. Meanwhile, Kotaro and Tabamaru arrive in the Akake province, where they resort to stealing food supplies in order to survive. As the duo arrive in their secret hideout, which is an abandoned temple, they see an intruder sleeping inside. Ignoring the man, Kotaro cooks dinner for him and Tabamaru. Elsewhere, the Ming Chinese travelers have also arrived in Akake province, where they're setting up a large altar in an old fortress. Back in the abandoned temple, Kotaro finishes cooking and gives a piece of fish to Tabamaru, who then brings it to the strange man. This annoys Kotaro, but then gives another piece to Tabamaru. However, the secret hideout has been discovered by the authorities, and they're hellbent on taking Kotaro and Tabamaru in custody. The man, seeing Kotaro get hurt, defends the boy and his dog. Tabamaru gets injured by a flying dart during the fight, but buys enough time for the man to counter an attack from their enemy. The fight ends, but Tabamaru is poisoned by the dart and needs to be treated. The man attempts to leave, but Kotaro tells him that if Tabamaru didn't save him, he'd be the one in pain right now. The plan to guilt trip the man fails, as he still tries to leave the scene. Then, Kotaro offers to hire the man to help save Tabamaru and become their bodyguard as they travel to the Mangaku Temple. Allured by the money and amused by the audacity of Kotaro, the man agrees to help. Together, they bring Tabamaru to the next town for treatment. Tabamaru is paralyzed and Kotaro tries his best to treat the poor dog. Meanwhile, the other village authorities find the carnage left at the abandoned temple and see a Ming Chinese warrior trying to investigate the crime scene inside. The village authorities hold the Ming warrior captive and question him what the purpose of the altar is. Kotaro and the man find shelter in another village while Tabamaru is resting. Meanwhile, the Ming warriors, including Luo Lang, finally arrive in Akake province. It is revealed that they're apparently looking for Kotaro before the next full moon because they need him to create the elixir of immortality. It's unknown how they'll make it, but one can only assume that they're up to no good. On his way back from buying a new saddle, the still unnamed man encounters Luo Lang, who is looking to play around for a bit. He manages to defend himself against Luo Lang, all while refusing to draw his sword. But then, news about their fallen comrades reaches Luo Lang's team, and they're forced to go back to town. Back in the hut, Tabamaru is still unwell, but is on the road to recovery. As the days progress, Kotaro and the man seem to be getting along quite well. However, bulletin boards have been posted around the Akake province, stating that whoever can give the authorities information on the whereabouts of Kotaro will receive a hefty reward. The man giving them lodging leads the authorities to their house, but the trio are long gone by the time they arrive. The trio stop by a watering hole to take a bath, where Kotaro sees the man's scarred body. As they're talking, Kotaro finally asks what his bodyguard's name is. The man introduces himself as Nanashi, and he's an ex-soldier. Kotaro watches as Nanashi dyes his natural red hair to black and listens to him as Nanashi explains that he was the lone survivor from a sinking ship once. And because of his red hair, he was hated a lot, and so he taught himself to dye it black. Learning this, Kotaro seems to be apprehensive of Nanashi, but still trusts him enough. As the night progresses, Nanashi tells Kotaro that they were followed, but to act like nothing is wrong. They continue on with their conversation, and Kotaro reveals that he had been living in Ming, China, until 2 years ago. He's an orphan who was saved by monk Shoin, and he'd been staying at the temple ever since. Nanashi asks why he left the temple, and Kotaro says that the temple had been attacked. Just then, a couple of bandits emerge from the shadows and try to attack them. But Nanashi is quick to act and saves them all. The trio go on their way to Mangaku Temple. Meanwhile, the altar inside the Akak province is almost complete, but the Ming have no leads as to the whereabouts of Kotaro. Elsewhere, the locals have discovered the real purpose of the Ming. They're searching for ingredients to create an elixir that gives everlasting life. A Taoist master had counseled the Ming emperor that the blood of a prophesied child born only once every 100 years will give them immortality. The altar will then become a tool to remove the blood from the body, supposedly in accordance with the prophecy. Now, the local authorities in the Akak province hatch their own plan. Capture Kotaro to make the Ming leave their land. Xiaojun, an old colleague of Nanashi who also lives in Akak province, is tasked to watch over the Ming warriors. His disciple, Inyui, assists him in his tasks. The trio finally get to the Mangaku temple, and Kotaro finally pays Nanashi for his services. Shoin is alive and greets Kotaro at the temple. Seeing the reunion, Nanashi leaves Kotaro and Tabamaru and goes about his merry way. Meanwhile, Kotaro is taken to meet Zekai, who turns Kotaro over to the Ming warriors in order to save themselves. Kotaro is taken, but the local Japanese forces intercept the Ming warriors. During their fight, Nanashi sees an injured Japanese soldier come out of the temple and immediately knows something is wrong. He tries going back inside the temple, only to see two Ming warriors escape from the inside. He goes after them, but his horse gets injured while in pursuit. Tabamaru escapes from his leash and leads Nanashi to track the people who kidnapped Kotaro. The Ming have found out the local Japanese soldiers' betrayal and have tasked Liu Lang to take care of the traitors and capture the leader. Meanwhile, Xiaojun leads a small battalion to rescue their leader and stop the prophecy from happening. Liu Lang takes Kotaro up the altar and asks him who Nanashi is. When Kotaro doesn't answer, Liu Lang taunts him and says Nanashi had died by the hands of the Ming. Kotaro is then strapped to the bloody altar, awaiting his death. Moments away from completing the ceremony, Xiaojun appears with his battalion and confronts the Ming. However, they take the leader out of custody and use him as a human shield to deter the locals from attacking. Xiaojun instructs Inyui to shoot an arrow, which hits their leader directly in the head, killing him instantly. Xiaojun instructs his men to follow him, and he can have any reward they want. Nanashi and Tabamaru arrive at the altar just in time to see the local forces storm the fortress. As the fight progresses, most of the Japanese forces are killed, including Inyui. Nanashi runs to the altar, but is knocked unconscious momentarily after a blast destroys a part of the fortress. While knocked out, Nanashi recalls his time as a samurai when he was tasked to kill two children in public. This is when he vowed to never unsheath his sword ever again. Nanashi recovers and climbs out of the wreckage, only to see Kotaro about to be sacrificed. He gets to the altar and finally unsheathes his sword in order to save the poor boy from getting slaughtered. Meanwhile, Xiaojun and Liu Lang battle it out, but Xiaojun eventually gets shot by Bai Luan, Liu Lang's master. Tabamaru manages to get Kotaro out of his restraints, and the duo try to escape the clutches of the Ming, meeting Nanashi on their way down. However, they get attacked by more Ming warriors, and without his sword, Nanashi seems to be having trouble. Kotaro fortunately finds him a sword just in time and injures one of the warriors, but the blood that spurted out of the body hits him in his eyes. Unable to see, Nanashi almost falls to his death, but Kotaro and Tabamaru manage to pull him back up. Bai Luan attempts to shoot Nanashi, but Liu Lang kills him, intending to challenge Nanashi to a final duel. Kotaro finds Nanashi's sword and gives it to him. Finally, Liu Lang and Nanashi engage in an epic sword battle. Kotaro sees the two men stab each other, and he calls out to Nanashi. But thanks to Kotaro's payment earlier, it saves Nanashi from getting fatally wounded. Liu Lang, on the other hand, gets stabbed right in the stomach and collapses to his knees before dying. The next day, Kotaro takes an injured and exhausted Nanashi away from the wrecked fortress and into the next town, while talking about starting over a new life together. That was a thrilling ride from start to finish. What was your favorite part? Leave a comment below. We hope you liked this video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more movie recaps like this one. See you next time.